Our next speaker is Nahla Summers. Nahla is going to share what happens when faced with a crossroads in life. One way no, the other way yes. What came next were a series of crazy challenges in the name of kindness. Nahla Summers, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I only have 10 minutes and I'm going to squash 8 years into 10 minutes. I don't think it's been done before, but I'm going to have a go. So I was doing 15 years in the corporate world. I thought that I was a yes person. I absolutely thought that, you know, saying yes to joining the work bowling team was, you know, made me a yes person. And it was only after the death of my partner while he was on a charity cycle ride did I start to realize that maybe I wasn't living my best life and living to the extremes. I guess that didn't come straight away, but in the first couple of months after his death, I became very housebound. I didn't leave the house. I wasn't going to work. And it was really a moment, the story is longer, but there was this beautiful moment when I'd stepped out onto the beach where we lived. And it was the kindness of a stranger that really became the catalyst for me saying, I have to do something. I have to start to leave the house. So 6 months later, I'm climbing Kilimanjaro, and I had raised £14,000 with the support of others to do it. Now, you need to probably understand at this point that I'm not an adventurer. I'm still not an adventurer. I'm not very good at it. And even when I was training for Kilimanjaro, I looked up what I needed to do, and it said, you need to walk very slowly up Kilimanjaro. So I thought, well, I'll just go on a treadmill and walk really slowly for a couple of hours each day, and that will get me ready. So as you can imagine, I wasn't very prepared for Kilimanjaro. I've learned a little bit, probably not that much, but I've learned a little bit more about how I can survive. And going up Kilimanjaro was challenging, obviously. And it was really, I was getting close to the top, and sickness for me, actually, I know Jane said a little bit of sickness wasn't going to put me off, but for me, it absolutely was. I had the altitude sickness and said, I don't want to do any more. And the guide very kindly kind of said, come on, keep going. And I was about 4 hours from the top and got up to the top and the sunrise. But at that moment, the £14,000 for the charity in memory of my partner really wasn't the driving force behind me doing it. When I called the charity and said, what will we do with the money? A couple of months later, they said, well, it's just gone into the big pot. And I thought, wow, I'm not sure that I want his memory to be about that. And that wasn't what we were about. It wasn't what our relationship was about. It was about kindness. And I was very much drawn and struck by the kindness of the stranger on the beach. So I thought, well, okay, I can carry on doing these challenges, because what I realized was that it was actually helping me through my grief. And there'll be people who are listening today who are like, yeah, I recognize that. I had that chance to come out of a terrible situation, and grief comes in many ways, through death or divorce or many different paths for different people. And we make a choice whether to step up and do something and start to say yes to life, which is what I did. So I carried on doing these challenges, but instead of asking people for money, I thought, well, I'll ask them to do an act of kindness for a stranger instead. And the first year I did it, I just did Snowdon, because I'd learnt that I wasn't very good at adventuring. And even Snowdon was a bit of a struggle, because I didn't realize that there was snow at the top of Snowdon. I went with no gloves, got lent some, and lots of people got to demonstrate kindness towards me while I was up there. To help me and support me. And that first year, they said to me, friends of mine said to me, can't I just give you £10? Like, it would be so much easier for me to I even give you 20. But what happened from there, eventually, a few people got my idea, and these amazing stories started to come out from it. And those stories made me think, this is this is what I should be doing. This is important. You know, this is teaching young people important lessons. So that became the driver. And as I've evidenced, I'm not a very good adventurer, but I thought, well, the only way that I can kind of get people to sponsor me kindness is by carrying on doing these things. And so the challenges almost got smaller and smaller because I wasn't very good at them. And then I had been still working in the corporate world, was working out in the Middle East. And I decided that I was going to go big or go home. So I decided that I would cycle across America. Now, I hadn't owned a bike in 20 years. I mean, you're already getting what I'm going to say at this point. I hadn't owned a bike in 20 years. I bought it from Gumtree 6 weeks before. And a lot of people said to me, you can't do this. And what I have learned is that's quite a good driver for me. I will always find a way to succeed through that. So across America I went. I broke it down into sections. Everyone kept saying I couldn't do it. And then when I got to about halfway, I think people started to realize, well, actually, she might do it. And my best day after about 5 weeks was 120 miles. So that really proves to everyone that you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it. It was very much about mind rather than fitness out there and doing that challenge. And then, well, I'd sold my house to do that and quit my corporate world. I'd really kind of made the stand to support my cause, Sunshine People. And I carried on the following year, and of course I'd run out of money by this point, so I needed to do something that was free, and walking is free. So I thought, well, I'll walk from Swanage to Gretna Green. Now, 500 miles, it's got a good ring to it. I wasn't going to walk 500 miles, you know, great tale to tell people. Trying to get PR along the way was much easier that way. And what I thought was, oh, well, I'll just pack a bag and I'll walk and it'll be quite easy because I walk all the time, right? We always walk. At that point, I wished for my bike back. It was very slow, but it was amazing. I went with no money and I relied on the kindness of strangers along the way. And the power of saying yes to the adventure was huge. In terms of the people that I've met along the way, the people who I now call dear friends, and 25,000 acts of kindness was raised from that 500-mile walk. And I have just carried on, really. This year I am going 4,500 miles on an elliptico bike. You can see how this is kind of, it gets progressively worse, although this time I am trying to train, and it will make 2 world records while I'm doing it. And yeah, it keeps on going. And I had a friend, I'll tell you this, just I think I have 1 more minute. I had a friend who, when I wrote my first book and I said, I really want to write a book, and she laughed at me straight in my face. She's actually a good friend, would you believe it? And still a good friend. But she laughed in my face and said, really? And now when I tell her I'm going to do these challenges, she doesn't laugh anymore. She just says, oh, okay. Yeah. So we have removed the naysayers from our lives by persevering and keep saying yes. So that's what my advice and my final note is, ignore the naysayers, let them drive you to make change in whatever way you want to do that.
Yay! Brilliant.